Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily cover Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. And of course I have a Patreon and Discord, more info at the end of the video. Okay, so anyone who has been watching this channel for a while knows that I think slings are criminally underrepresented in Pathfinder. So today I'd like to answer the question, can I make a slinger viable in Pathfinder? In other words, can I make a character that is a primary slinger? Someone who uses a sling with sling stones and have them do okay in Pathfinder. Note that I said okay, that is to say, can do their jobs. I'm fully aware this is not going to be a hyper-optimized character. I'm looking for a character that is solvent, able to follow the math of Pathfinder. I'm not looking for the cream of the crop here. Now, before I get started in on character ideas, a couple of things. First of all, the big question, why do I care? Why am I fixated on the sling? Well, the sling was a hugely important thing in historical combat. Slings probably predate bows, though of course there was no written history when either was created, so I can't say for sure, but they were also by far cheaper and easier to carry. If an archer's bow broke, he was out of luck, but a slinger could carry a bunch of extra slings on them. So slings are flexible and lightweight, and a slinger could have 5 or 6 slings on them and not be weighed down too much. But imagine trying to carry 5 or 6 bows with you. Also, ammunition was easy to find. It was just rocks instead of needing to make a bunch of arrows. Now, it is important to note that professional slingers did use handcrafted sling ammunition, but they didn't have to. Another thing to keep in mind is that ancient societies often didn't have full-time armies. Often when someone went to war, the local lord or whatever would conscript farmers to go fight, and those people didn't receive much training. And if they were poor peasants, they may not have had a bow, or at least not a war bow capable of penetrating armor. But they could probably go hunting with a sling every few days. Oh, and yes, if you were an ancient farmer and you were conscripted, you had to provide your own weapons of war. It was kinda BS. But even when there were full-time armies, they still used slings. The Romans famously said that every soldier should carry a sling on them just in case they had to engage in ranged combat. And the Balearic slingers were mercenaries known for their sling usage. That is to say, they were so good at slinging that they could outperform archers a majority of the time. So yes, there were full-time slinger units in militaries who could hurl stones up to 400 meters or about a quarter mile. So with all that history out of the way, let's talk about the mechanics of the Pathfinder sling. What does it have going for it, and what does it have going against it? First of all, we're working with a lot of positives. It's a simple weapon, which will be important for later, I promise. It's also a propulsive weapon, which means you add half your strength bonus to damage. That's not a lot, a maximum of +3 damage even at level 20, but it's better than nothing. It also has a decent range of 50 feet, but it is not a volley weapon, so you can use it up close and personal. The downside of the sling is that it is reload 1, meaning that you have to take an action to reload it in between each shot. This means, assuming you aren't hasted or something, you only get 3 shots every 2 rounds, and that's assuming you're doing nothing but standing and slinging. Compare that to the 6 shots every 2 rounds of a bow. Lastly, while it technically isn't mentioned in the stat block, the conventional wisdom says that you need a free hand to reload the sling. So while you could shoot it with only one hand, you'll need a free hand to reload it, making it effectively a two-handed weapon. So I've got 3 builds here that I think would make a decent slinger. I've tried to make the builds as different as possible and not just use the same tricks over and over again. These are not the only builds that can use the sling, just a few options that I came up with. Now, since I'm doing multiple builds in this video, I'm going to do this lightning round style, just enough to give a rough outline of the build. I will also have the level 1 stat array I would use at the bottom, but I'm not going to call it out specifically. The first build I will be using is a ranger, and I'm going to use a halfling slinger, though I am going to use the alternate ability score rules of 2 boosts and no flaws, because I want that strength as high as possible for the propulsive trait. For heritage, you can take whatever you want. I like Wildwood Halfling because they ignore some difficult terrain, but pick your favorite. For the first level ancestry feat, I'm going to go with Titan Slinger. This says that if I use a sling against a large or larger creature, the sling's damage die increases by 1 step, up to a d8. For background, there are several that work. I like going with conscript as that riffs off what we were talking about earlier, but yeah, pick your favorite. For class, like I said, I'm going to go with ranger for a couple of reasons. One is that if you are only going to be getting off so many attacks around, we are going to want to make them count, so I'm going to go with precision ranger, which nets us an extra d8 damage the first time we hit every round, assuming we hit our hunted prey. We can also use the feat Initiate Warden to gain Gravity Weapon, which further adds 2 damage per damage die to our weapon once per round. For special considerations, I would take the Gorilla archetype at level 2 and at level 4 Gorilla Weaponry. This feat lets you, once a round, reload and then fire a sling. This is called Gorilla Assault. So your first round will probably involve casting Gravity Weapon, hunting prey, and then firing off a sling round. Then subsequent rounds involve moving, hunting prey if necessary, and then reloading and firing your sling as a single action. Okay, so that's build 1, but what if you don't want to mess with the Gorilla archetype? Well, good news, there's a build that is all in one, no archetypes needed. It will require the rare Exemplar class though. For this build you need something that's good with strength, dexterity, and constitution, so I'm going to go with the best ancestry for that, the Minotaur. Specifically a little horn Minotaur to make the guy medium-sized to fit in those tight dungeon corridors. For the first level ancestry feat, any would work, but I like Pantheon magic, which nets a divine cantrip. Grab whichever cantrip you want, though I like Rousing Splash to net us a few temporary hit points if we know a fight is coming. For background, any that grants strength or dexterity works. Seeing as we are some sort of Minotaur demigod, I like Beast Blessed, which says you freed a magical beast and they blessed you. Maybe that could be the source of your magic demigodness as well. For class, like I said, Exemplar is what we're going to want. This class says that you increase the damage of all simple weapons by 1 die step, so that makes our sling a d8 weapon always in our hands. We also want the Starshot weapon icon, which is only one of 2 ranged weapon icons. The other one doesn't really work for a weapon that has reload 1. You can kinda sorta make it work, but it's finicky, so let's stick with Starshot. This weapon icon does splash damage to those nearby, so be careful of friendly fire, but it also can make explosions. You can take any 2 other icons you want. For first level class feat, I would take Vow of Mortal Defiance, which is complicated, but basically says you can spend an action to, once a round, deal an extra 1d6 spirit damage to certain creatures. A nice little bonus if it comes up. And finally, for special considerations, at level 3 I would recommend grabbing the Deft epithet. This lets you reload your weapon when you spark Transcendence, giving you a bit more action economy. But even with that, the build is a little tight on action economy, as the special Starshot ability is a 2-action activity, and maybe your GM doesn't allow rare classes like the Exemplar. Fair enough. Is there a class that does all it needs to do in one package and also isn't rare? Well, yes, but you aren't going to like it because it's Inventor. So for this build, we want a character that has high dexterity and intelligence, and that's just an elf. For heritage, you could grab anything. I like Desert Elf, which gives us fire resist, meaning if our machines blow up in our face, we will take no damage. For our first level ancestry feat, pick your favorite. I like Forlorn, which helps with emotion-based will saves, but that's just me. As for background, I think Tinker works, and it gives you the ability scores we need. And as I said for class, this is an inventor, specifically a weapon inventor with the complex simplicity innovation. This increases our sling's damage die by 1 step to a d8, but also allows us to give the sling versatile piercing or slashing, allow us to do any physical damage type. How do you invent a sling that can go into overdrive and explode for fire damage? I don't know, but here you are. For first level class feat, you can choose whatever you want, though I like built-in tools so that you can have lockpicks and a medical toolkit on your sling somehow. As for special considerations, well, at level 15 you can grab the Momentum Enhancer, which lets your inventor reload their sling once a round as a free action. I realize level 15 is pretty late in the game, so maybe save this build for a higher level campaign, like Hell's Destiny, which is an 11 to 20 game. Now, before we end today, I do want to say that I had one more build, but it uses the Slayer playtest. For those who are watching this video after the Slayer comes out, the Slayer class was in playtest mode as of writing this, so I didn't feel comfortable making a full build for it. But yes, Slayer could make great sling users with a few feats. Side note, did you know that technically Crossbow Slayer works with any weapon that you reload? Don't know if that gets fixed in the final version. Anyway, I put the stats on screen if you care. But that's it for today. Let me know what you think. Would you like to play a Slinger someday? Do you have an alternate build that you think would work? I know I thought of a few others like a Thaumaturge or a Battle Harbinger. Let me know what you think. But anyway, that's all for today. Hey, as a reminder, I have a Patreon. I'm going to try and post something fun there once a month, but honestly, it's just a way to keep this channel financially viable. For the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you can help me keep the lights on. Let me know what you think. And of course, I do have a Discord channel. Drop by and say hi. We would love to talk to you. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That tells not only me, but also YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming.